Technology and Livelihood Education, Handicraft, Exploratory Course for Grade 7 and 8. Handicraft Exploratory Course for Grade 7 and 8. Our topic is Create Embroidered Article, applying what you have learned. First is the back stitch. Bring the thread through A and take it through B. This creates one stitch. Bring the thread through C and take it in through B. This way, we are creating a stitch by taking the thread backward. Next is to bring the thread through D and take it in through C. Then continue this pattern to finish the design. A finished line of backstitch will show like this. Bullion stitch. Bring the needle out through A and put the needle through B at a desired length. Now bring the needle out through A again. Then wind the thread around the needle as shown. The distance of wood thread should measure the same as the distance between A and B. Too many or too less wraps will spoil the stitch. Then hold the wrap thread with your fingers and pull the needle out with the other finger. Keep pulling the needle completely in an upward direction till the wraps lay on the fabrics as shown in the picture. Adjust and straighten the wraps if required and put in the needle back through B. Chain stitch. Bring the needle through the top of the trace line. Then hold the working thread down towards the left with the thumb. Then insert the needle at the point where the thread has just come through and bring it up on the trace line about 1/16 of an inch or about 1.5 mm further along. Cross stitch. Bring the needle out through A and take it diagonally across to B. Bring it back again through C, which lies vertically below A. Now put the needle in through D, which lies vertically above B. You have made a single cross. Feather stitch. As we begin by doing a long-tailed daisy with the start point on A, the loop is angled at about 45 degrees since we are making a zigzag pattern. While making the tail, before going in through the fabric, we wrap the thread around the needle as shown in the picture. Then the needle is put in through C and brought out through D, again at an angle of about 45 degrees. Next, loop the thread around the needle as shown. This is to make the next long-tailed daisy. Continue this procedure by making long-tailed daisies at 45 degrees angles. This illustration shows a portion of the feathered chain stitch. Fishbone stitch. To begin with, bring the needle out through point A, which is the top tip of line Y. Put it in through B to make a single straight stitch. Now bring the needle out from point very close to A on the line X. Put it in through a point very close to B on line Y. Again, pull out the needle through point very close to A on line C. This procedure of putting in the needle through X and Z alternatively will follow. Each time we will connecting XY and YZ. Make sure all the stitch points lie close to each other to avoid any visible spaces. Halfway through, our leaf would look like this. You can see the rib being formed. Once finished, the filled lip look like this. French knot stitch. Bring the needle through A. Now, place the needle close to the fabric. Wrap the thread around it twice as shown. Keep the longer end of the thread pulled with your fingers while putting the thread back in a point just close to A or even through A. Herringbone stitch. Bring the needle out through the first stitch line at A. Now, take the needle in through B, which lies diagonally across A on the second stitch line. Then, take the needle backwards out through C, which lies near B. Now, the same procedure will work on the first stitch line. Take the needle diagonally across to D and bring the needle backwards out through E. Continue to make such crosses on both stitch lines alternately. Make sure that the diagonal stitches are parallel to each other to bring out the best look. Lacy Daisy chain stitch. Bring the thread out through A, put in the needle near A, and bring it out through the point B. But don't pull the needle out completely. Now, loop the thread around the needle like we would in a chain stitch. Then pull out the needle to tighten the loop. Put in the needle just outside the chain created, and that will finish the Lacy Daisy stitch. This standalone stitch can be used freely to be a part of any design. Since I have decided to make a flower, I will proceed with making multiple lacy daisies around the marked stitch line. This is the completed flower made of multiple lacy daisies. Loop stitch. Lay the foundation by doing a rounding stitch. Take a contrasting colored thread and bring it out from near the first running stitch. Start following the bikini stitch technique. Take the needle in through the second stitch and come out through the first, making a loop. Continue this action of looping using the running stitch foundation as illustrated. Finish up the pattern for it to look like this. Running stitch. Bring the needle out at 1. Insert the needle down at 2. Then continue steps A and B, working out to left to make several running stitches. Check the stitches on both and wrong sides of fabrics are equal in length. Satin stitch. Bring the needle out through A and put it in through B, so that it makes a stitch which covers a small area between the stitch lines. Now bring the needle back through C, a point very close to A. Continue this action over the 2 stitch lines. Once finished, the area is filled as shown. You will be spending as much thread on the reverse side as you do on the actual side of the fabric. Split stitch. Bring out the thread out through A and put it in through B. Then take the needle backwards to bring it out through C. Note that C lies halfway between A and B. While bringing out the thread through C, take it in between the thread, splitting it into 2. Then again, put the needle in through D to bring it out through B, splitting the thread. Continue this procedure to finish the stitches. The only thing to keep in mind is to split the thread when bringing the needle out. In some way, it will give you a visual feel of chain stitch. The reverse of the fabric will give you a back stitch pattern. Seed stitch. Make rows of short running stitch as illustrated. You need not do row after row as long as the strawberry seed pattern is more or less maintained. Try not bend with the curves of the pattern. The rows of running stitch should essentially be done in straight lines. Stem stitch. Bring out the thread through A and take it through B. Take the needle backwards and bring the thread out through C. Make sure the point C lies over the stitch of A, B. Then you need to note that the point C lies about halfway through A and B. Also note that C lies on top of the stitch AB. So all the subsequent stitch points will lie on top their previous stitch. Then take the needle in through D. Try to mark D in such a way that the point B will lie halfway through CD. Bring the needle out through B. So the pattern of 2 stitches of stem stitch will be as shown as the picture. A time to remember. This is Maylene Huliganga. Thank you for watching.